Good evening and welcome to Beyond Room 313 with me, your host, Thomas Sheridan, and my colleague, Jason Roba. And tonight we have a woman who I've been following on social media for about a decade, probably at this point, Marny Godden. She lives in London and she's a performer, stand-up comic, satirist. I was going to say a one-man act, but she's one-person act these days, I guess, but she does male characters on stage as well. She's appeared at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And I think what Marny does has always fascinated me because it's kind of an underappreciated form of performing. The concept of creating characters is something very bardic about it. And I've always loved the way Marny can transform herself into these characters. They're often very funny, but they're very real too. And welcome to the show, Marny. I'm delighted to have you here. We're delighted.
Thank you both for having me. It's very, very good to be here. I'm very flattered to be asked to come on to your amazing show.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I really enjoy that pastoral scene around you. It looks very...
I actually created it. I've done this some kind of... His name's Tom, actually, the painting behind me.
Yeah.
And it came from my parents' old house. Tom Cale, 1850. Do you know who he is?
No, I never heard of him.
Nor have I, but I inherited it, and then I've got a nice kind of fig plant next to me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, you've always struck me as someone who was probably performing as soon as you were in nappies. Is that true? Is that a stereotype, or were you really like that?
No, that's true. That's probably the reason that's the reason I did it, was because I came out and immediately started to entertain my family, and they were like, where has she come from? Like, what is this? And then they encouraged it. I was lucky. I wasn't kind of, I wasn't told you're showing off and shut up and all that kind of thing. They were like, do some more, do some more. So I was like, okay. And then obviously you learn at a young age, oh, everyone's looking at me. This is fun. Like, this feels good. And, I'm making them laugh, and okay, let me invent something. Let me do something. And yeah, so from a very young age, entertaining my family and their dinner guests. And my dad always recalls me doing impressions of Margaret Thatcher at dinner parties and stuff like that. And yeah, so yeah, childhood performer onto adulthood.
It always strikes me that there's what you said about, it made you feel good because you saw people feel laughing. There's also a great power in that kind of satirical thing as well. There's a tremendous sort of escape from yourself, where you can kind of, I wouldn't say, I mean, that sounds cliched, hide the parts of yourself, but I've been using it for years too as well. I find it an incredibly powerful way to communicate an idea in such a way that it sinks easier into people's consciousness. Did you find that too at an early age?
I don't know about an early age. I do know that, yes, I agree with you. I think it's a way to be confident without being confident, like, because you're basically, it's all make believe, it's all let's pretend, it's all let's dress up. It's not, this is Marny, standing here kind of, it is hiding behind a disguise. In later life, I found the power in getting across something from my spirit and my soul through the character. And yeah, and that was something I was very passionate about a few years ago. I've kind of lost my passion for that a bit lately, but and just because I think you just get older and you're just a bit like, well, what am I doing with this?
Yeah.
It's not really working mainstream. I'm not getting hired. I'm not, people aren't kind of, I have had meetings with producers and talked about making TV stuff, but possibly something within me isn't going towards that world anymore. So I've kind of had to look at myself a bit more behind the mask, behind the character. And that's very weird for me, because it has been like hiding behind characters for a long time and living in a fantasy world, definitely.
It's almost like creating an alternate reality, and in that alternate reality, it's like you're a king or a queen.
Yeah, you can be who you want to be. And that was my experience, was that I trained at a classical drama school. I went to art school for a year, and then I went to a drama school for 3 years. And I left drama school and I was like, right, I've got to make it as an actor. And that didn't happen. And I found it really, really hard. And I was being sent up for adverts and I just didn't know who I was. And through my 20s, I felt completely separate from everything and everyone. And I was working in an office as a receptionist, and I was like, okay, I need to be someone's girlfriend, and then I eventually need to be the perfect wife, and I need to like get married and do these things, and I need to fit in. And I was so unhappy. And then in 2008, I was going for a jog, and I was listening to Kate Bush, King of the Mountain. That album had come out, and I suddenly thought, I had this moment where I was like, I have to create stories and characters and I have to let all this creativity explode out of me, and reconnect with what I did when I was a kid. And maybe that will save me. Maybe that will be, and so that's what I did. And I did 11 Edinburgh shows, creating characters and arcs of stories and going into different magical worlds, and everything is a bit surreal and a bit, otherworldly. And that's what I was passionate about. And that felt way better than trying to be the woman that I thought I was meant, society wanted me to be, which I couldn't be. I absolutely couldn't be.
No, that's a common conversation Jason and I often have.
Is
the
it?
concept of talking to your younger self. This, go back to your younger self. You said you were playing the game of life in this kind of conventional way, except you wanted to be an actress. You're deeply unhappy. Mm-hmm. Though I find when you're in those positions, you don't see a way out because you're not willing to. I mean, I don't want to get too personal or anything here. I don't know what your situation was, but often we're not willing to admit we're unhappy. It's like it's seen as a kind of failure, and therefore we put up with it until eventually a crisis moment happens and a relationship ends or something happens, and then you're forced to actually finally look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, that's who the fuck I am. And did that happen to you?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I was unhappy. I wasn't saying it to anyone, like you say. I'm not going out there and saying, guys, I'm so fucking unhappy, and I'm not being me, and I don't know how to be anything right now. And so I wasn't going out and saying anything about it, but I was, definitely so unhappy and not knowing how to communicate that. And so, yes, when I suddenly took on the thing of like, well, I'll create, that was the way of escaping the old Marny who was desperately unhappy and detached. But having said that, I don't know about you guys, but I still feel disconnected sometimes, and a deep kind of like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. So I'm always seeking to be more authentic to who I am somehow.
Yeah, well, the day you lose that, the day any of us lose that's like who the hell we are, is kind of the day we're lost as creative souls, because that's actually a catalytic kind of experience. It's like when bands first start out, they have no money or nothing, and they produce fantastic records. Then they become big stars, and then the music becomes lame. Yep. That the insecurity is the engine of creativity. I have no doubt about that. Would you agree, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. And then Marny, you're in your 30s too, right? Like early mid 30s.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm in my late 30s.
You're in your late 30s. So still, we're same generation. I'm 35. And I don't know if it's like this in the UK too, but I remember here in the US when I was about, 10, 11 years old, when you're going into middle school, they call it here, junior high school in some places. It's like, I just remember the day they're like, we want you to have your whole career fucking laid out for you by the time you're 10. It's like picking out the classes to do in 6th grade through into high school, through into college, so that you can have this internship and this career path. And I'm a musician, and I'm like, oh, I'm a musician, easy. I'll be in band, go to college to major in music. Fuck it. I just wrote the things down, like music. And everybody's stressing out about it. I'm like, no, I just want to be an artist,
Brilliant.
But there's that pressure though, that everybody, like even us artists, like in our generation, there's the, over here, I don't know if they call it imposter syndrome in the UK too, but so many people around our age, a little bit older, a little bit, especially the younger people, have this imposter syndrome thing where it's like, if you're an artist, unless you're like on the TV as a big name, people think, oh, I'm not a musician. I'm not an actual musician. I'm not an actual comedian. I'm not an actual actor, but they've got this tremendous ability, but they sell themselves so short because it's like, oh, well, I'm not, I'm not whomever. I don't have, I'm not making $2,000 a month from Spotify plays. I get my Spotify revenue check and it's like 17 cents every quarter. And it's like, there's just that difficulty there I found as an artist where it's like, yeah, I do food deliveries just, to pay my bills and everything. But it's like working with Thomas here and doing this, that's enough to fulfill that. For so long, like I wanted to, work in Hollywood straight up to when Thomas and I started working. It was like, okay, I need to go get be someone's assistant and get into that machine. But I fucking hated myself as I was like looking at those like, I'm getting like bodily tension thinking about it right now, because it's just the idea of that, and some of the it's just gross. The idea, like, and some of it has to do with what is going on in Hollywood right now with and I don't want to get into politics of it, but the political, there's this big old like draw of politics into Hollywood right now. And I'm just like, no, I don't want to have to represent any of that. So I don't know if that's something similar you've experienced with like needing to be like you're saying, molded into a certain type of person that, from a young age, where I want to say our generation, millennials to younger generation Z, were the first people that are like, no, you need to be a cookie cutter, go to school, go to daycare, go to church, whatever it is, and like be this, block people, where putting people into categories and the over compartmentalization of things, where like in Thomas, your generation, I felt like you guys had a lot more individual freedom as young people and more expression. But us, just a little bit younger, it's just we were cut into squares at a very young age.
Oh yeah, well, we had that too when I was growing up, but it was freer, definitely. It was definitely freer. I can remember I graduated, I did what we call in Ireland the leaving cert, what they call the A levels in England. I don't know what they call it. If your final exams in secondary school, high school, and there's the vice principal was also the career counselor, and he said to me, like, what do you plan to do after school? And I said, well, I want to be in a band, and I want to make money and make records and play. And he said, Thomas, that's an impossible thing. It's nearly impossible thing to do. And I says, I know. He says, well, would you consider going to like tech or something like that? And I says, I probably will later, maybe on, but right now I want to do this. And he said to me, like, do you really, really feel that way? And I says, yeah. And he turned around and said, I'll never forget this. He said to me, and this was like a conservative, like Irish man in his 50s. And he turns around and says, you know what, you're probably right. You're one of the few people that came in here that actually knows what he wants to do with his life for real, because you actually feel like you want to do it. And he says, best of luck to you. Now, I couldn't see that happen nowadays. It was more, I mean, I went to a kind of a hippie kind of comprehensive that was like that. It was still a lot of 60s leftovers still in it. But I can remember that quite distinctly, like where he kind of like threw in the towel trying to give me a career. And he said to me, yeah, do what you want. That's the way to do it. And I'll tell you something, he did me a great favor. He did, because he really, he didn't put me in a position where I was having to battle for my own humanity. And I think that's what a lot of goes on today. You have to kind of battle this, you have to battle to justify your own existence. And then you can be what you want.
And the sad thing is about that is I often think about all of the incredibly talented, highly sensitive creatives who they can't battle. They can't, they're scared and they're afraid, and the battle is really hard, and getting back up every time you get knocked down is hard. And that makes me really sad to imagine this art that we'll never know about, and these people who are trapped in their fear because they're too scared to like get on stage or you know, I wanted, the first thing okay, yes, I made people laugh and I wanted to perform, but at one point in my teens I was like, I really want to be in a band. I really, really want to be in a band. And I knew that music and being in a band was like the coolest thing that you could possibly do as a creative. And I was like, I just want to sing or be like, and I remember one time some guy randomly came into the pub I was working in, and he was like, oh, we're looking for like a female singer to be in our band, and she needs to have quite a husky voice. And I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like, I thought, I've got a husky voice. And I was like, I could do it. And he kind of went, he kind of gave me a look, and that just went boom. Like, I was like, I'm never, ever gonna put myself forward to be in a band again. And I just went back into this space of just insecurity and like, you know, okay, I'm not going to be in a band. And it wasn't until I was 27 that I said to a best friend of mine, I was like, thinking about trying to be in a band. So it kind of came back. I kind of built myself up to, she was like, Marny, you're too old now. You're 27. Like, you can't do something like that. She's a very conventional friend. Like, I've got quite a few conventional friends that I went to school with. I'm kind of the oddball. And I let that put me off too. And if I take that as an example, you know, and that wasn't even the main thing that I was interested in. It's awful, that the idea that you get a knockback and you just never come back. Like, awful. We should be building each other up as creatives, which is what obviously this program's about. And hopefully life will become more like that.
Yeah, I mean, I had a few experiences like that as well. And I remember one time I went for an audition with a band and I was about 19 and I just wasn't good enough. And I mean, that was literally, I just wasn't good enough. But I'm a very fast learner on the guitar. So if I had have been given a couple of weeks, I would have been fine. It's just that I could learn very, very quickly. And I can remember the lead guitar player laughing at me because I couldn't play the chord sequence. Because there was like a really weird chord, like an E minor suspended seventh or something. The start, all the songs are written in this really weird key, and I'd never played it before. I didn't know. I mean, but like 2 weeks later, I knew it because I'd learned it, and I can remember thinking like, how many people like me did that bastard demolish with that smirk, you know? And of course he went nowhere. Those things never do.
Good. So he got his karma then.
Yeah.
That's
So let's talk about some of your characters, okay? You're doing one at the moment. That's actually the reason why it got me on this one. It's kind of like a spooky children's presenter. This. Tell us about that one. That character. You made something
about Get in the Den, which she's a wit. She's kind of she's what I imagine in the 70s. You remember 70s TV? And it's a bit, the women are all a bit, and 1980s TV, and the Blue Peter women are very kind of like, hello. Yeah. And they're just kind of a bit colourful. They've got colourful jumpers on, and they're like these kind of
non-threatening.
Yeah, quite, well behaved. I was like, yeah, she's quite well. Normally for characters, I'll put a costume on, which helps being an artist because you can put something together. And then I'll see what comes out. And it's normally off the cuff, very quick work. And it's a bit like channeling something. So it's just doing an impression of someone or, and with her, I don't know, it just came to me in lockdown. It was nice because I got to combine painting, drawing something. And then the concept was then she makes it real by offering it to a beast who lives in a den. Yeah. And then the beast kind of magically, so they create magic together, and it's kind of the light and the dark thing. And then and it was just a silly idea, but it took off to
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing, to be honest with you. And I think I see a TV series in it. I wish there was producers weren't idiots and they could actually jump on something, because you really can, but she's got this kind of real spookiness about her. It's kind of like, that 80s, like, hello, today we're going to take a trip to the zoo. But she's like, hello, today we're going to there's a kind of, I can't explain it.
No, it's like a horror film.
Like viciousness into her at the same time, and it's very clever.
But do you remember when we were kids, I don't think it exists on TV now, but everything was really scary. And like I just remember our children's programs had the light in the dark, and the dark was scary. And I mean, I did watch a lot of films that I probably shouldn't have watched when I was a little kid. So it kind of gave me that imagination. But I think it's healthy for kids to be exposed to a little bit of kind of spooky, scary stuff. They love it. Like they love it, and they laugh, and it doesn't make them kind of. I used to get into trouble at primary school. I remember I was called to the headmaster's office once because I was telling everyone ghost stories, and I was entertaining them. They loved it. But somebody went home to their parents and was like, I can't sleep. Marny's been telling me scary stories. And he was like, Mr. Coop, his name was, he was like, Marny, you can't tell them scary stories. And it's just kind of like, okay, it is creepy, but it's fun. And that kid needs to toughen up. That's how I feel. I'm like,
well, a lot of that UK kids TV from the 70s, a lot of it is dark. And then you have in between it, when we grew up in Dublin, I grew up in a tower block, so we were able to get this BBC across the Irish Sea we were up high, so we had to get on the building. And they used to have these public service ads, kids being electrocuted by pylons or being run over by trains. So, in between like these kids shows, like you'd have little Jimmy being crushed under a machine or a train or something. And it was fucking brutal, but it was also kind of, remember that one, I am the spirit of the dark and lonely water. And it was like a demon that was in ponds and dumps that take the drowned kids. And it was just like they really went out of their way to traumatize kids. You could see they were loving it, But at the same time, it was cool. It was at the same time, I can't explain why, but it was cool. And I think if you look at how children's TV developed from that to Teletubby, that to me was the point where something sinister came into children's TV.
yeah.
Like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what though.
But also not very imaginative. And kids have got incredible imaginations, and that's why they respond to imagination. And I don't know. Like I don't have any children, and I know some of my friends' children, and I get on with them, and I can tell that I get on with them because they can see something in me that I can see in them, which we still have, which is an imagination and a fearless imagination. And I've managed to, I believe, maintain that. And that's important to me. That's really important to me.
And it's like the same thing with comedy now. Like so much comedy, especially here in the US, is just total shit. And I think a lot of it has to do with that loss of imagination, where everything is like kind of political satire, but just gross. It's not even like some of the stuff that people watch. I'm like, you're into that? It's like, it's not even that funny. Everybody always quotes like Anchorman and stuff. I'm like, it's a little funny, but it's like, it's the same people that grew up on Teletubbies and that kind of TV that thinks that shit's funny. And it's just like, I can't stand most American comedy now. It's the same thing with like the stand-up clubs here and everything. It's that style. And it's everybody laughs at it. All the normies laugh at it, but it's lost. But yeah, you've got that classical style. Like you said, you were trained with theater, right? So it's like you've got a depth to it, and as you're saying, it's another world that you're bringing people into, and there's a depth there where it's like it's magic, taking something from that universe and bringing it to this one, or taking people from this universe and bringing it to that one. It's brilliant when people can do that, whether it's through comedy, television, film, music, storytelling.
Well, I think that all three of us understand the necessity of the performance.
Yeah.
Like there has to be a performance. Where stand-up comedy today, it's like I just stand up and I say something about Brexit or Trump, and people laugh. There's no jokes there, none whatsoever. And you can, the more you make these sort of politically correct platitudes, the more you're considered a cutting edge, and all you're doing is repeating what's on the evening news.
Yeah, just
It's really
dissing
quite-
stuff. Yeah, just
The
dissing
other
people.
thing-
Yeah,
The other thing they do, yeah, exactly, taking the piss out of people being mean. But the other thing they do, which has been popular for years now, and I'm like, when's this going to go? Is like, this is watching a stand-up. So many of them make their shows about, and they're very successful, about, you know, my problems, and then it all comes to like the end, and it's like, turns out they were raped, and it's like, wow, that's it. You know, kudos in that I wouldn't be able to go on stage and be Marny talking about my problems. I wouldn't. But at the same time, I'm like, where, what? Like comedy, like I want to laugh, I want to feel good, I want to watch people with their imaginations, like, you know, being the idiots that they are, like raw idiot that they are, like when you were a little kid and you and your best friend made each other laugh about the stupidest shit. That personally, I want to see that. I don't want to see someone's problems, like someone's, you know, that's, I don't know, but that's very popular, and that's what wins all the awards.
And also gay comics acting like it's still cutting edge to be gay when it's the most mainstream thing in the world. I mean, I don't know how it is, but the last few comedy clubs I went to, there's always a gay or a lesbian comic, and you know, and they're not funny, and so, not because they're gay or anything. I'm just saying they're not funny, but they still act like there's some kind of novelty in being, you know, the joke is I'm a gay or a lesbian person. Well, hold on a second. It's 2021. I mean, the Village People was 50 years ago nearly, and you're still acting like, you know, your sexuality is a novelty. That's something I find really interesting. Is like, okay, so that tells me that beyond your sexual identity, you don't really have any jokes. That's what I say.
Yeah, you're probably right. But that is very trendy and trans and you know, just being kind of it's whatever the agenda, the public agenda is about. The agents and the producers and the commissioners have a remit of, they're like, this is what's in at the moment. So hire all those comedians, because that's all they know, and that's all they want to talk about. They're not even funny. They don't have funny bones. They may not have imaginations. They're not showing it, but they're the ones. And anyone who's kind of a bit creative just seems to be sidelined.
And they're really bad at that in England and the UK. I've noticed that they jump. There has to be a certain trend. Like, do you remember 20 years ago it was all Asian comics when Goodness Gracious Me came out? Every Asian. It's like, hold on a second, can we not judge these people on talent, person to talent? And that stuff was, I found those Goodness Gracious Me people very, very funny. They really were talented, very, very clever people. But suddenly the whole thing becomes Asian bands, Asians, this, and then, you know, then after that was Irish, you know, Irish this, Irish that, and then it'll be something else, you know. It's like in the UK, the BBC sets this kind of agenda where here's the package of the moment, and all entertainment now has to fall into this, and we discard anything else.
Because they're not creative, are they? The commissioners and the, I mean, I've met a few commissioners. I've been into a couple of quite big studios, very intimidating and scary. And there seem to be like these very preened men who are in their kind of 60s, wearing very tight designer blue jeans and kind of quite pompous, like public school, kind of like, you know, and they're kind of like this, and they're sitting there with all their power, and you're like, why are you in control of a creative field like this? Why are you the one that's been placed in this position of power, who gets to say, after all everyone's blood, sweat and tears of creating that, you know, giving their heart and soul to something, who gets to say, you, like, and it just pisses me off, because the commissioner's the one that you need to get past. And they, you know, that's kind of a block in things pushing to developing on a larger stage, I think.
And there's so much nepotism and things like that, and cronyism in showbiz anyway. It's shocking. You know who has the #1 album at the moment? Bono's son.
Oh, really?
Yep. And the band are quite good. They're not, but like they got the record deal and the whole thing because he opened doors for them.
Yes.
I mean, I understand that.
You would do the same.
I would do the same, but at the same time, too, how many bands aren't getting doors open to them who are just as good?
Although if you had children and they were shit, would you do the same?
Yeah, well, you look at Hollywood, a lot of them did. Do you remember that 20, what was it? There was some Beverly Hills 901, or it was a kind of a teen soap opera or young adult soap opera in the US about 20 years ago. And a man had his daughter and his son who couldn't act in the show.
Yes, I remember that. Beverly Hills 90210, and one of the main characters, and she didn't have a big speaking role, but she was always in shot. And she didn't have a big speaking role because she couldn't act. And she was just gormless, kind of just standing there.
That was the producer. Then it's completely unfair because then it's just straight out nepotism.
And then the casting couch, which still exists. So I don't know why anyone pretends it doesn't exist in the Me Too era. It's like, no, it totally does. It exists for all sexes and all ages. Like, they're going to do you a favor. People with power you do them a favor and they'll do you a favor. And that is happening constantly. So,
but that amazed me when the Me Too thing happened. It was like, oh, hold on a second. Next, you'll be telling us that, M&Ms have peanuts inside them. It's the most obvious thing. And all the media, like, shocked. Can you believe Hollywood for decades and media and show business is all full of, like, older guys, getting into women's knickers and fellas' knickers. It was like, what? Do you remember, like, Jonathan, what was his name? Jonathan King. He was a DJ in Britain in the 70s or 80s. I mean, he was a notorious pedophile, and he was, like, literally playing on young boys.
Yes, I remember.
But that was what? That was 40 years ago.
That's like 1984.
Yeah, he was it all came out, and your man who used to manage the Bay City Rollers, Tam something, he was another one, and that all came out. And yet it happens 3 years ago. The Me Too fucking thing happens, whatever it's called. Yeah, and suddenly they're all acting like no one ever knew about this before. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was the beginning of cancel culture.
And it will continue to happen. Because the thing is that, it's like, it's a bargaining tool and has always been a bargaining tool of life. So let's just, like, be open to that. Some people will be up for doing that and some people won't. And some people won't even realize they're doing it. And that's sad when people get taken advantage of. I think that happens a lot, especially when you're a young woman. And I know this from experience. You really don't know how to, well, I personally did not know how to say no, or to how to kind of like fend off unwanted attention. I would just freeze. And then it's not until this age.
I would do it. I remember like a few years ago as a joke saying, to someone that, like, if Harvey Weinstein washed his balls in front of me and I got a part out of it, I'd be happy to do it. And the looks that I got, it was like, maybe it's because I come from a different generation, but I mean,
but that's totally your prerogative.
Yeah, I mean, I'd do it. Like, if he wanted to put his Willie in, just like, I give you a role in at your own TV show, I'd be like,
you're doing it for free for nothing. Why would you do it? For fuck's sake.
It's like, well, when things came, but the looks that I got when I said that, and it was half serious but half jokey as well. And one woman looked at me like this, like seething, like that I said that. But it's like, okay, you're offered, like you said, you, Marny, right? You're offered finally, after all the years of blood, sweat, and tears, right? That one thing, something as minor as watching Harvey Weinstein wash his bollocks in front of you, and then you got a Hollywood role. You have to ask yourself, is that worth it? And I think most of them will say, yes, it is.
Well, and that's why most of the people who a lot of people who've done that aren't going to admit to it, because they did it. And yeah, it's worth it. They're now earning money and mixing in circles where you can.
They only have to do it once. They only have to do it once. The
thing, I mean, it would depend on what it was, but it depends on your integrity, I suppose, and also whether it's up to you. Everyone's different. Everyone's an individual, and
yeah, like Weinstein was a predator. But so is the guy. So is the guy that you're talking about, in the tight jeans with his nose up in the air. He's a predator. He's the same kind of. He's also a monster too. It's just that Weinstein is a more honest monster than that guy. And also, you know what the rules are with someone like Weinstein. You don't know what the rules are with these kinds of guys, the public school guys with the nose in the air. You know what I'm saying? There's a humiliation ritual that's honest, and there's a humiliation ritual that's dishonest.
I would way prefer the honest one, obviously, because it's like, you know what you're getting. You're like, okay, he's slime, great. But like, I know people who have big followings on Twitter and have this public persona, and I know what the fuck they're like. And it really fucks me off, because I'm like, oh, you're so good at hiding that shit. And I just want to go up. And it's so tempting to say, by the way, all you feminist women who follow this guy, he follows you back, and you're liking all his stuff and like, just kind of worshipping him, everything he says. Yes, he has a brilliant brain and has an incredible way of phrasing stuff to make you go, wow. But in real life, he doesn't like you. He actually doesn't like women. He hates you. Like, I know that. And he's very angry and twisted and dark. And, he's just got a really good way of masking himself as a public. And seeing stuff like that makes me look at social media. I'm like, oh my God, we know nothing. We know nothing behind what's going on behind the front. And it's just a massive dark rabbit hole of like, it's just an illusion, isn't it? All of it.
Yeah. And it's a thing, because people fall in love and everything with miasma and caricatures and chimeras on social media, and that's a completely invented thing. Yeah, when you meet them and you see what they're like, and you say, okay, they really are like that in real life, so they are cool. But there's like, I have met people, say, in the alternative scene, and who like, they're very different. They're very different when they're not preaching love and all this shit, and and I don't. That's their thing. I don't judge them. That's their own business. But it's a funny old world, that whole public thing of like being a paragon of virtue, or being some kind of sainted one. You respect them more if they just were more like, I'm a dickhead or something like that. You'd respect them more. It's like, but there's no one wants to be themselves. That's what it comes down to. No one wants to be themselves.
No, and but at the same time, do we even know what we are? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think someone like yourself, and there has to be an element, and I'm just kick me if I'm wrong, but there has to be an element of searching for oneself in what you do and all these characters you create. Am I right? Am I wrong?
No, you're right. I think each character is an aspect of part of me, and that's kind of a little bit, I suppose it's a bit schizophrenic. It's like you've got a character that represents your anger, a character that represents your sexuality, a character that represents your suppressed sexuality, a character that represents your masculinity. I'm trying to be more feminine, because I do tend to go towards more kind of masculine characters, or I have done in the past, and I feel, so I think I'm always finding out. I feel lucky to be able to do something that as creative as that, where you can actually find out layers of yourself. Is kind of quite an interesting journey going through life.
Yeah, well, let's go there. There's a kind of an animus thing going on there, where you're trying to reconcile the two parts of yourself. I think art is a fantastic way of doing that, and performing. And that's like that skinhead guy do with the one toot. Was he based on someone you knew, or is it compositor just out of your head?
I think that's a combination of watching the young ones when I was a kid and liking punk, and liking anarchy, liking a very bold, extreme expression, being able to say be butch and masculine and out there. And so it's definitely an aspect of me needing to just be like, shut up. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, you know, and be a bit more kind of, but then it also has the silliness and play of an idiot. So you kind of counteract the harsh part by going, you know, I'm an idiot really. And like, you know, I like that. I like being able to be with an audience and to shock them a bit, but then also be kind of a bit vulnerable. And I like pathos as well. I like people feeling like they can feel your sadness. And that's like the sad clown. I am a sad clown. I feel sad inside. Like this sounds, I'm sorry, like I should play a violin, but like I am very sad. I feel very sad inside. Like I feel heartbroken. And I know everyone does. Like I'm not trying to make out that I'm more heartbroken than anyone else. But like that comes through. I feel like I'm always wanting to, you know, express that. But it's actually a woman, one tooth, and everyone thinks it's a man. And I'm like, no, it's a woman. And I've had people come up to me after live shows and say, I know her. I've met her on the street. I know that woman. And I'm like, wicked. I'm like, great. Like I'm channeling a real person.
Mm-hmm.
So
like the Puccini opera, Piero the Clown. It's just this torturous pathos, but yet it goes very deep to the core of all of us in an enormous way. And again, where is that on the TV today? Where is that in the movies today? It isn't out there.
Yeah, and it should be, because people love it. And if you pull off a good performance and you've created something authentic from your soul and from your heart, as you both know, being artists, it's very powerful and it inspires people and it ignites them to want to do something. It's so, you know, that's incredible. It generates ideas, and other people have ideas just by watching your ideas, and then it's a generator of, you know, so it would be amazing if they commission stuff like that. But I also feel like I'm shying away from it, but just because, similar to what you were saying about you know, do I want to be part of that world? Do I want to rub up against like
exactly
dickheads, like and just want to be like people who are gonna just stab you in the back instead of being supportive, or I don't know.
Well, things like YouTube give you a third way.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've used social media very well, I think, in order to help me. And I discovered the magic and the power of it very early on, years ago, in fact, that you could actually play this thing to get yourself a window that you would not get anywhere else. And it's like Jason is now using this channel and the films we're making as his third way, rather than to go, you know, looking for, you know, some guy to wash his balls in front of him. But that's you as well. I mean, your channel, your YouTube channel is like that as well. I think in your case, I watch your videos, and if you just had a little bit more extra production, you could be a YouTube superstar. I'm telling you, good, Marny.
But what production do I need? Because I don't know anything about that stuff.
I don't know. Like you do very well with the camera and stuff. Like, I'm not telling you how to do your career, by the way, but I can just I can see you're a few steps away from greatness when I see some of that stuff. Like in the den, specifically, if it had music, if it had multiple camera angles, if it had a higher quality, you know, I know this sounds like bullshit too, but this stuff does reach people, because so many people are tuned to see, oh, it's professional or it's not. And not all of us are like us here. You know, I come from like the punk rock fanzine days where, you know, a magazine that was printed on the back of a photocopier was fucking brilliant. But not most people are not like that now. They want some kind of thing. And I often think, like, if you just had some little team around you that could push you there, I think you could really take off big time, because there's lots of stuff like you that's on YouTube already, and it gets colossal hits. There's one guy who plays the bass guitar. Now, he's a phenomenal bass guitar player, but he's created a Borat type character around his bass guitar playing. So he does things like, you know, this fool thinks he's a better bass player than me. And it'll be like sound effects. And he goes, you know, like, and there's one thing where he made this thing up where he said the ukulele was an instrument for imbeciles, and an instrument, and then all these ukulele kids, all these teenage little kids came on the ukulele and they're playing like incredible riffs on it. And he goes, I've now elevated the ukulele to the tropical bass, you know, like, and it's just his act. Otherwise, he's a fantastic bass player, but his shtick has, and the fact is good production quality, good camera angles, good sound effects. Boom, he's getting 9 million views, 9 million views a video. You're very close to that if you could nail that. If you could find someone like that and to work with you over there to do that kind of thing, I think you could, even if you did it as a business, you know, business thing. Someone who has a good camera understanding and sound, you could probably do a YouTube channel together and probably like take it off as a business, you know, because I can tell you, Marny, you definitely have what it takes. What you're lacking is
the production.
And the package, yeah, the package, yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, and I have reached out to a couple of people recently to ask advice about production and stuff. And I had a meeting with a camera guy last week in Shoreditch, actually, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm up for filming stuff," because he wants to improve. He wants to like build his he wants to build his CV or whatever. And so I sent him some Get in the Den stuff, and he was like, he still liked it. He was still up for it. It didn't scare him off or anything. So I should, yeah, you're right. And I know that. And I'm trying to pull in the tools. And then sometimes, you know, as we all do, I go, oh my God, I can't be bothered anymore. Like, and I lose faith in myself. But it's like, no. And then something happens. Don't know whether you guys get this, but I'll get a little nudge from somebody or something that will encourage me to keep doing it. And I'd love to develop a YouTube channel and get a bigger following. I think that would be very fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to be, I look at TV now and I'm just like, oh, fuck off. Like, I'm not into you. You've turned into something so dull. And like, I don't even have a TV. And you guys probably don't have TVs either. Yeah, because it's what's there for us. What's there for us.
So, the only time I watch TV is when I'm in a hotel, I'm traveling or something. That's the only place I can get access to television. And I look on, you know, 900 channels and there's absolutely nothing to watch. You know, and that, you know, this is why YouTube is where it is now. Because rather than them finding their audience for you, you can find your own audience. And I definitely think that you should do the Den alone. Just that one alone is genius. Is genius, and that thing alone has everything. I mean, what I would find appealing. It's a bit weird. It's a bit dark. It's very clever. It's satirical. It's kind of like what's going on here, and that will, you know. And I think if you could just have proper titles and stuff, I know you could like make a big thing out of that. I know you could.
Oh, thank you. That's really encouraging, and luckily for me, I love making it. So that and you know what it's like when you love making a particular thing, you want to do it more and more and more. And so I reckon it would have legs.
And what you're saying about having someone nudging you or lighting a fire up your arse, that's actually important for creative people, because Jason and I will do that to each other. Like you know, I might have a slow period and he'll throw a piece of music for me and he says, can you write a script for this? And I'll be like, oh shit. And then I do it, you know, where otherwise I might, you know,
it'll pass you by. You won't do it.
Yeah, or I'd say, oh, fuck it, I don't feel like it today. And I'll send him sometimes some narration. And then he has to do it then.
Yeah.
To have someone with you that can light the fire under your arse is actually very valuable in a nice way, in a creative way.
My ex was the person who lit the fire under my arse, but we're not together anymore, and I really miss that part of the relationship, which I think that's what we had. That was the important part, was that we were both highly creative, and would just, you know, one would say something and that would make the other person's imagination explode, and that would feed into your own thing, and each of you would go off and do your own things. And so
yeah,
I miss that a lot. So it's really good that you two have that with each other. It's a lovely thing to have.
In a non-fruity way, I might add.
I don't believe you. Not really.
But yeah, no, and it'll happen you. It'll happen you. I can feel it. I can feel it. I mean, that's one of the reasons I brought you on this show. Like, Jason didn't know about you, and maybe you and I kind of been friendly anyway for a long time online. But it was really the Den thing that really said, okay, she's got something really good now. And I want people watching this to go and look at those sketches. I'll put a link, of course, below to your YouTube channel. Now, I want to talk about one other thing that's kind of important. The muse. We were big on this in this, and you know, on this show, this spark of insight that comes out of nowhere. That almost like there's we talk about, like, it's great to have a partner for, like, that, the fire under your arse, right?
Yeah.
But there's also the demon, that hidden aspect of yourself, the genius, the muse, the subconscious. That's an incredible thing. How much have you depended on that? Has it showed up in your life during your performances and things like that?
You mean my spirituality? What I?
Well, your subconscious muse, your internal voice that tells you. Say you were doing a show on stage one night, right? And you ad-libbed, and this ad-lib came out of you, right? A monologue, and afterwards you looked at the video and you listened to it and you said, "Holy shit, where did that come from? It was fucking brilliant." Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The Marny behind Marny.
Yeah. All I know is that it's very powerful, and I want to be it all the time, but there's so many distractions, and it's always been with me, and it's hard to talk about, isn't it? It's like it's like the best experience that I've had of it is in a clown workshop. And when I say clowning, I mean as in the French kind of clowning, like you were talking about. Cohen, I've forgotten his name, that comedian who does the big characters. I've forgotten his name, but you do clown.
Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah, that's it. So he trained with a guy called Goulier, who's a man who runs a clowning school in Paris, in France. I never got to go there, but I know a lot of people who have gone. But I have done courses in London, short courses in London. And it was in 2012 that it was introduced to me. Somebody said, you should come and do some clowning because I think it would suit who. And I was like, what do they mean? Like, are they talking about the red nose and I thought, I don't want to do that. I don't. But then I went to the course and I realized it wasn't that. It was, you get up on stage and you're trying all these things out, which you're used to getting laughs from your family and your friends, and none of them are getting laughs. And you're like, shit, like what? And it kind of throws you into a panic. And then suddenly the raw you, the Marny behind Marny, comes in, and you're creating this stuff that you're like, I'm not in control anymore. I didn't know that was going to come out of my mouth. And a bit like it, you can do the same with music, can't you? When you're improving music and you get this incredible music coming out of you. It's the same with obviously comedy. Like, you're suddenly this idiot and everyone's laughing and it's a very surreal experience. And I know that I have that. I know that I can turn on a valve or turn off a valve of me and something else comes through, and I love it. I love it. And I just would like to use that more. But in order to use that, you need to completely drop everything that has you know, every part of your identity that's been created, because it's not that. So I'm assuming it's your soul. I don't know. What is it?
You know, it's so interesting right there. I want to jump in because you were talking about earlier the masculine side of yourself, that these characters all come out on this one side of you and they all tend to be masculine, right?
Yeah.
As a composer, and I've talked to other male composers before, where it's like your anima or whatever it is, the opposite gendered version of yourself that looks back at you in a female way as a man, putting that into my music, it's like that's the only way I'm able to communicate with that. And sometimes I do wonder if like the daemon, the holy guardian angel, whatever it is that opposite gendered version of yourself that can communicate, and you can have that kind of feedback loop with it, with him, with her. But I've found that before, where it's like, yeah, my muse, it's a female, it's feminine energy. But you know, when it comes out, sometimes it comes out incredibly aggressive, you know, because I'm a guy here, but with the way the music is, but it is a feminine energy that, you know, and I put it on this side for whatever reason. But yeah, you talked about that with these characters being men or masculine in nature, and how you're trying to be more feminine. But it's like, just my 2 cents, whatever it's worth. It's like maybe there's something to that masculinity that's coming through, you know, and you don't have to necessarily force the feminine side, because you already have it, you know, that's already who you are. But that's just my 2 cents there about that last part.
No, that's so interesting. I sometimes wonder if it's other lifetimes, other kind of, you know, where have we come from, like all those other lifetimes. I believe that I've been here many, many times, and I feel like you can access that information, you can bring that information in, so it could be that mixed in as well. And I like what you're saying about the masculine and the feminine. I'm channeling a masculine energy. I was told to be more feminine, to channel more femininity in meditation, like I don't know whether it was my voice telling me or but yeah, that's quite addictive, going into that space of losing yourself and finding yourself.
It's funny you mentioned that about the reincarnation thing, because I can play Middle Eastern music on just about any instrument, any stringed instrument. If someone hands me anything with 4 strings, I can even a banjo with 5 strings, I can play really good instinctually, like really good sounding Middle Eastern stuff. You wonder where that comes from.
That's what I'm talking about. And I've done clowning and or just improv, or kind of, you know, done that point where I've lost myself and something's coming through, and I don't like that stuff. Isn't from this life. Some of the stuff that comes through is a completely different vibe to what I know. And so yeah, maybe you're picking up on, sometimes I wonder if you are just channeling something, you're channeling whatever's there, whatever information is kind of, I don't know.
Guys, my internet is really acting up badly here. I don't know about you. If you want to,
yeah, mine's
you're frozen.
Oh, can you hear us, Thomas?
Yeah.
You are frozen, Thomas.
Hello.
I think I can hear Thomas and I can hear you, Marny, but I don't think he can hear us. Oh, now you just went fuzzy.
Uh-oh.
Well, can you hear me, Marny?
Yeah, I can hear you, and you seem fine.
Yeah.
Thomas is frozen.
Yeah, we'll thaw him out here in a second. But well, we'll keep this going here until he comes back. Oh, we lost him. But I was just gonna say, you were talking about the past incarnations thing, and for me, it seems like my personal belief in this is that the actual memory of pictures and places is a consideration of the body, but experience of, like what Thomas was talking about having a visceral ability to just play something, or for you to just orate something. That's experience, which isn't a construct of the brain and the mind, but comes from the other lives that you've lived before, where it takes just like bumping into that thing again, like in a dark room, and going, oh shit, there's something here. And I ran into it again, and I didn't know this thing was here. Like, you know, walking around the room with your eyes closed and discovering things that were there from past incarnations. That's the best way I can describe it, as being in a dark room, and suddenly, you know, there's a keyboard in front of me, and like my fingers know this, even though I haven't been taught how to play it. Or there's drums over there, or there's a cat, you know, and it's like, oh, I know that. with speech, it's like you can start talking about something, about certain esoteric things, and it's just, where did that come from? Because you've done it before, even though you don't have like a visual. Oh, okay, I was at the Library of Alexandria and whatever. People who talk about that, I don't believe them. But when people have, like Thomas said, the past incarnation experience, that's real, and it sounds like you've touched on that, and it's only us artists who, yeah.
And the other thing that I was going to add to it was that I think I grew up in a house that was like packed full of antiques and interesting things, because my dad was an antique dealer and my mum collected stuff. She was an artist, and I reckon, because there's quite a lot of spooky stuff in the house, there's like dummies and an array of different kinds of paintings and just like bric-a-brac and stuff like that. And a lot of that stuff came from house clearances, which is when someone dies and all their stuff is left in their house and people take all the stuff out. And then a lot of it came back into my house, because my dad was an antique dealer and he'd bring stuff home for my mum and go, oh, what do you think of, and they'd keep it. And I think all of those things hold energy and absorb the energy of the history of these people's lives.
Absolutely.
And I've often wondered whether growing up in that environment has definitely left an energetic imprint on me. And so I think it's probably to do with that as well for me.
I'll take it one step farther than that even. So you're talking about these items. Yeah, I grew up my parents thrift store shopping, bringing antiques and everything. And yeah, they have an energetic resonance to them, and they have somebody's imprint. It's like you can charge a talisman with something and have it be no longer just a special mouse, but have it be a Logitech mouse. It's a real talisman now because of the charge in it. It's Jason Roba's mouse. And it's the same thing with any object. It can have that resonance, but when you have the resonance within you, it's like that thing can come in. And if there's a sympathetic, just like you can go into a room and find out what frequency the room resonates at. Like, unfortunately, this room resonates at my voice, so it gets annoying in here. But like, you can go into a room and find where the harmonic frequencies are. And I think it's the same with us, where if we have a string to vibrate and you bring that item around and it vibrates at that, it's going to make that, resonate within you. Thomas just messaged me, there's a thunderstorm over where he is. So we'll see if his power probably got knocked out. That's probably him on his phone messaging me. But we'll keep going here until he jumps back on. But yeah, that vibration, there's got to be something within you already. You, the being, the soul that has reincarnated before, that's done things in other lives. Suddenly, an object that's in the room, some kind of talisman, like this rocket that we built for the film. It's like it brings back something, and there's no other way to explain. Yeah. So it's like with you. Yeah.
I mean, that way. Yeah. So it's not just the talisman that exists in your room. It's connecting to something that it from a previous life that it triggers you to recall those things. Wow. It's like layer upon layer of kind of vibrational frequency, whatever you want to call it. But that's so interesting. Wow. Well, in that case, just like you were saying, thrift shops and stuff like that, my house was a generator of all of that. Like, it was incredible. Like, there was stuff everywhere. And I remember when I was a kid, there was a painting hung opposite my bed of this woman, and by an artist called Betty Swanwick, and it was just a woman's face, quite spooky. She had a hat with kind of flowers on top of it. It was quite old-fashioned, and I used to stare at it every night, and because it was opposite my face as I fell asleep. And one night the face changed. I could see it changing, like the kind of shadows and everything like that. And it kind of pulled this really scary face, like a demonic, glaring face. And I screamed. I was very young. I was probably like 8 or something. And I screamed and screamed and screamed. And I told my parents, "You please remove that painting." And they took it out. And even now, I can't look at that painting. They've kept it. It's in their new house. And I'm like, I don't want to see that painting. That is something going on there. And a friend of mine saw it when I showed him around the house once. And I said, "Oh, don't look for too long at that painting. There's something going on there." And he was like, "Well, let me have a look," because he's kind of a shaman. I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "It's a portal. It's a portal." And I was like, "Oh shit, I don't want to know."
Oh man, wow.
I was like, well, if that's a portal, how many other portals were in the house that I grew up in? It's like,
I know.
that.
I've had experiences like that too. My mom had one with a mirror, and I won't tell her experience here, but yeah, that similar kind of thing with a face coming to life. And it's like, some people will say it's a portal. Thomas, right, by the way, he's saying thunderstorm, give me a minute. Internet is out from lightning, tell Marny to hold on. So we're holding on, waiting for Thomas to come back. But yeah, it's real interesting, because some people, again, and I would say it's all subjective, because some people will view it in a way that I do there, and others will say, there's an actual entity there. And it's hard to say. It's hard to say sometimes, where is something an exteriorization of an aspect of yourself, or is it a total other thing there? And it can be,
or is it an energetic vibration, like a memory, that has reached you, and isn't threatening at all? It's just but I think as I've got older and more experience with how weird life actually is, like, this fake light world that we're living in and everything, the more I go, oh, okay, I'm just going to go with what I feel there and then, rather than allowing myself to get panicked or anything. I'm just going to try and keep practicing to be as present as I possibly can in moments where, intuitive things happen, or magical things happen, so that I can just, I don't know, just like really experience them, instead of, like, obviously when you're a kid, it's like, no, I don't want to see that ghost, and I don't want to hear that voice. Like, I heard someone call my name when I was a kid, and I was like, don't, I don't want to hear my name called from the basement at night. Like, and yeah, that's what happened. And now I'm like, even though that would be really scary, I don't welcome that. I try and be a lot more kind of philosophical about the source of things, mystical, magical, scary things, rather than what we were taught, which is everything's out to get you, everything's demonic, and everything's going to kill you in the dark kind of shit.
And now that we have more experience in life, and more ability to defend ourselves energetically, you can go in sometimes and see, well, what is there, what's in a healthy kind of way.
And like you said, it could be it could be a projection of you.
Yeah.
And the same night that the name called me from the basement, I was a teenager at the time, I was having a sleepover up in my bedroom with some of my girlfriends. And I went upstairs and I said, I just heard my name called from the basement. And they were like, shut up, Marny. Like, they didn't believe me. And I was like, I'm serious. And we all went to sleep and we settled down. And then suddenly my friend, who was the most skeptical of all, screamed. And we turned on the lights and she was like, I just saw Marny sitting looking at Marny. And I can't explain it.
Yeah. And now we've got, there's Thomas. He looks like he's back.
It was like a
light
storm out there, and it knocked me out for a bit. Okay.
We're glad you didn't get abducted by aliens or something. We're glad you're still here.
That would be interesting, at least. So we'll just wrap it up now. I'll edit this up, so don't worry about anything he's in it. What you guys were talking about while I was off the air, could it be included?
Yeah, absolutely. I think and the timing was just right. She was wrapping up her story there right as you came back. So yeah.
Okay, so we'll do the wrap up. Anything you want to say to Marny before we close out, Jason?
Yeah, this has been a lovely chat, and I do really wish you the best of luck here with your endeavors going forward. You've got something special going on there, and keep it going no matter what.
Oh, thank you. That's really, really lovely thing to say. Thank you. And you likewise, and so cool to meet you properly.
Thank you.
And connect with you both. Like, it's been really lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been delighted. I've wanted to talk to you like this for years, and I think in the past we had a plan to meet up, but never kind of worked out. But
you're welcome to Greenwich, both of you.
Thank you. And it's been brilliant. It's been kind of like what I expected. That's why I wanted you on. It was kind of like I really appreciate that you opened your heart to us, as in terms of your creative life. That means a lot. And if anybody can help Marny become a superstar, I'll put the link to her YouTube channel below. Is your email address also on the YouTube channel or something like that?
Yeah, I think I've managed to put that in.
Put it up there, and subscribe to our channel, and behold genius before it becomes successful. That's the way I see it, and I think you will. I think you've been given something that's definitely worth going for, and like everyone else on the show, they only get onto the show because we find them interesting and they have something to say. And so Marny, you've more than well done that for us tonight, and thanks very much, and have many, 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 many more strings to your bow. And thanks again. Is there anything you have to tell us? Do you have anything like well, there's no shows or anything, so.
No, I can't think of anything to tell you apart from I really appreciate the tribe that you're both building, and it's so it's very, very important to me, and to be able to know that you all exist, and to feel your souls and your spirits and the creativity that you generate and stuff like that, and to connect with you guys means a lot to me, and I'm really, really grateful. So thank you very, very much for existing, for being
hopefully
human beings.
Maybe we can all work together. We can all work together at some point in the future. That'd be great.
Well, if Get in the Den gets commissioned, I'll need creatives on board. So
okay, we'll do that. I'll play an Irish priest, an alcoholic, or something like that.
Yeah.
No, I like have me Burberry hat here now. I mean, they say in the north side there'll be Burberry but yeah. So thanks, Marny. Thanks, Jason, and we'll see you all on the next Beyond Room 313 Symposium right here. And sorry for the technical glitches tonight, but okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.